A bit of a difficult Gemara today. We're on Samach Beis 62b, and we're at about halfway down the line. What is it, about 7 lines down from the top of the wide lines. First one line is dummy. We're at Pshita. Okay, so we learned in the Mishnah that you can make a shliach to either receive a shliach l'kabbalah or shliach l'halacha, either to receive or to carry a divorce. So the question is as follows: Pshita, ish have a shliach l'halacha shkein ba'al malakeh le'ishtay. So because a man can give a divorce, presumably a man can serve as a shliach of a man to divorce his wife. Similarly, if ish have a shliach l'kabbalah shkein ishim kabbalah tzkidim miyad ba'alo. A woman can accept a get because a woman can receive a get. So in other words, a woman can accept a get on behalf of another woman because she is within the category of receiving a get herself. Okay, now the question is, Ish l'kabbalah v'isha l'halacha mai. Can I appoint a man to receive a divorce on behalf of a woman? Shliach l'kabbalah. And can a woman be a shliach to give a divorce, a shliach l'halacha? So let's see this. Tashma. Let's examine this. So Aimer Skabel gets ishti. Our Mishnah says somebody tells a shliach l'kabbalah, accept this get on behalf of my wife. Now he does not have the ability to appoint a shliach l'kabbalah; only the woman does. But nevertheless, he says it. Or he says, or be a shliach l'halacha. Then he could change his mind, because effectively he's appointing a shliach l'halacha. If the woman told the messenger, receive this divorce on my half, be a shliach l'kabbalah. If he wants to change his mind, lo yachzer, he can't change his mind. My love, it must be b'chad shliach. The Mishnah is talking about where they both are using the same person as a messenger. Ushmamina kosher l'kabbalah, kosher l'halacha. If they're using the same messenger, then a shliach l'kabbalah and shliach l'halacha are effectively the same person. Now, what is that person's gender? Either it's a male or it's a woman or it's female. Regardless, one of them we see is in the category of being able to.
This is important, Rabbi. You're drifting into gender territory.
Obviously, one of those two people could certainly be both a shliach l'halacha and a shliach l'kabbalah, and that resolves the question. Whoever is kosher to be a shliach l'kabbalah is kosher l'halacha as well. They're kosher to give a divorce. So Gemara says, it's not a proof, but shnei shluchim, we're talking about two different people. In other words, it could be the Mishnah is talking about where the husband appointed a man and the woman appointed a woman. Tashma. So the next line of the Mishnah says as follows: the woman appoints a shliach l'kabbalah. Presumably, at this point in the Gemara, it's going to be a woman, and the husband says to the shliach l'kabbalah, "I don't want you to be a shliach l'kabbalah. I want you instead to be a shliach l'halacha." Obviously, we're talking about the same person, and then the halacha is she becomes a shliach l'halacha. Okay, so Gemara says v'hacha dechad shliach. Over here, it's clearly one shliach. We see from here kosher l'kabbalah, kosher l'halacha. That someone who's kosher to receive a divorce is kosher to give a divorce as well. So Gemara says, hold on a second. Let's maybe limit the proof. We'll explain as follows. It could be that a woman could be appointed as a shliach l'kabbalah, and a man could be appointed either a shliach l'halacha or a shliach l'kabbalah. Why would I think a man could be also a shliach l'kabbalah if he can't receive a divorce? The answer is he could receive a divorce on behalf of his daughter. He married off his daughter when she was a child, then he could receive a divorce on her behalf. So we see here that he could receive a divorce too. But we still would not know that a woman could be a shliach l'halacha. So in other words, maybe our Mishnah is talking about where a man was appointed a shliach l'kabbalah, and that man can be turned into a shliach l'halacha as well. But it could be if it was a woman that was appointed a shliach l'kabbalah, maybe she would not be able to be appointed as a shliach l'halacha.
Next position, please, Rabbi.
2/3 down, Samach Beis and Beis. First one on the line is l'halacha.
I see it.
Okay, so pshat mina, next word. Ish have a shliach l'kabbalah, she can have a kabbalah get lebitik tana. Ish lo'halocha tiboilach. But the question is, if a woman can serve as shliach lo'halocha, my, what's the story? Rav Murray says, Toshma. Af anoshim she'ein emonas lem meis baila, nemonas l'havias gita. Okay, so we spoke about it. We spoke about this in Yevamis, a couple of women that are sort of sworn enemies of a person's wife. For example, a co-wife, a mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, etc. Those people are not believed to say that her husband died, so that the wife can get remarried, because it's likely that they're trying to trip her up. However, if they bring a divorce and they say this is the divorce of your husband, they are believed because they wouldn't forge the document. Now, over here, these are women. They're bringing a document as a shliach la'alocha, b'hasam halachi. So Gemara says this indeed is a proof that both a man and a woman can serve both as a shliach l'kabbalah and as a shliach la'halacha. Amar Rav Ashi says, "Miseifa nami shma mina." I also have a proof from the end of the Mishnah. Ha'isha asim mevias gita ovat she'etzricha loyim b'fanei nechta v'kimna b'halacha shma mina. We learned in the Mishnah that a husband can appoint his wife as a shliach la'halacha. In other words, he tells her, instead of you being a shliach, instead of me giving you the divorce here, I'm making you a shliach to give a divorce to yourself when you get to this specific city. And she has to say b'fanei nechta. That's an example of the woman serving as a shliach la'halacha, and clearly a woman can serve both as a shliach la'halacha and a shliach kabbalah. Shema mina, it's good proof. Okay, now we get into complicated territory. I must say that last night it took me significantly longer to prepare than probably any other blot in Gittin. Yeah, so I'll do my best to try not to lose everybody. Just complicated. It's not difficult. It's just complicated. Itmar, the following scenario. So this Gemara's discussion revolves around the following question. The woman appointed him to do something, and he went ahead and misrepresented his shlichus, what he was sent to do. And the husband said, "I want to do what the messenger claimed he was sent to do, but he wasn't sent to actually do that." So let's see the Gemara. Idmar, Havali Giti. The woman says to the shliach. Shliach again is a messenger. She says, "Havali Giti, bring me my divorce." Okay, meaning what the woman said was, "I'd like you to serve as my shliach l'halacha." A woman cannot appoint a shliach l'halacha, but okay, all she said was, "Go get me my divorce, and be appointed by my husband as a shliach l'halacha." He went to the husband, didn't understand what was being said to him. He said, he says to the husband, "Your wife said I should be the shliach l'kabbalah." The husband says, "Heilach k'mosha amra." Do whatever she says. Okay. Amr of Nachman, Amr Rav Rafua. Rav Nachman says the name of Rav Rafua. Amr Rav, the name of Rav. Afilu get liyada ain't megarashes. Even if she gets the divorce, she isn't divorced. Even if she gets the document, she's not divorced. Why not? Because he misrepresented the fact. He said that he was appointed a shliach l'kabbalah. The husband thinks that he's a shliach l'kabbalah and said, "You're a shliach l'kabbalah." But actually, he was never appointed as a shliach l'kabbalah, and therefore, he never rightfully obtained the divorce from the husband. Now let's try to understand this for a moment. Let's say, ultimately speaking, the husband didn't actually say, "Become a shliach l'kabbalah." The husband said, "Do whatever my wife says." So we could understand this perhaps and say that, well, hold on a second. His wife said, "Be a shliach l'halacha." So effectively, the husband meant, "Be a shliach l'halacha." The question here is, when he says, "Do whatever my wife says," is he relying on what the messenger is representing as his wife's statement, or we say he's not relying on it? He wants whatever she actually said. In which case, the divorce would be good, and he's a shliach l'halacha. Together?
Utterly.
Says the Gemara, Shmami, no, we see from here, Adibura didei kasameh. When a messenger misrepresents the one who sent him, the shliach misrepresents the mishalech. Adibura didei kasameh. We think that the people rely on the shliach to understand what the mishalech wanted. The mishalech again is the one who sends the messenger. The shliach is the messenger himself. If we relied on the Mishaleach, on what she said, when the divorce gets to her hands, she should at a minimum she should be divorced because she wanted to shliach lahalacha. Amar Rav Ashi says there's no proof. Hachi hashta. Bishleme itmar ipcha. This is okay. So what's the Gemara trying to do? The Gemara is trying to say here that they're trying to prove that we rely on him and not her. Or that it's not a valid proof. If it would have said a different scenario, I would have had a valid proof. But now I don't. But under the current scenario, there's no proof. What does this mean? So if the scenario was as follows: Itmar ipcha hiskabali giti. The woman says, "Be a shliach lekabbalah." The ishtcha amra, and the shliach says that no, havali giti. I was supposed to be a shliach lahalacha. Whoever, and he says, "Helach kamasha amra." Do what she says. But Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rav, and Rav Nachman would have said, "Kivan shigeli get liyadai migurashes." When the get gets to her hand, she's divorced. Alma adibur didakasamach. 1 second. Sorry. Kivan shigeli get liyadai migurashes. See, he was appointed as a shliach kabbalah. He claimed there was a shliach lahalacha. The husband says, "Do what she says." Okay, now as follows: if Rav Nachman would have said that when he gets the divorce, meaning the shliach gets the divorce is executed, it's effectuated. So then we know that we rely on her because she actually intended making a shliach kabbalah. If we say it becomes a divorce when she gets the document, then we say he's relying on him. And he claimed to be a shliach lahalacha. Inami liyado, when it gets to her hand, the divorce is valid. Adibur yidei dikasamach. We're relying on him. Elahacha, okay. So that would be a good proof to the fundamental question of whether or not we believe the messenger to be representing the Mishaleach, the one who sent him. However, now in the current situation, which is the woman said, "Become a shliach lahalacha." The woman, by the way, has no power to make a shliach lahalacha. The woman effectively said, "Just go convince my husband to give a divorce." He entirely made up a story about a shliach kabbalah. In that case, it could be because he made up a story and she didn't actually say anything. In effect, therefore, when the husband says, "Do what she said," she didn't say anything. Therefore, he's relying on him. Over here, he made up a story. He was never appointed a shliach lahalacha. He claimed he was a shliach lekabbalah. So therefore, there's no proof to the actual question. So now the Gemara is going to go through this Amud and the rest of the next Amud, trying to resolve this question. We together? Yeah. Okay. Amar of Barchia. Rav Barchia has following proof. Toshma. Ha'imar eskabel gets el ishti. Ahalach gets el ishti. Rotz lachsar yachsar. Okay, this is our Mishnah. He tells the messenger either be a shliach lahalacha or be a shliach lekabbalah. Rotza lachsar yachsar. If he wants to change his mind, he made him a shliach lahalacha. He could change his mind. Time of the rotza, specifically if he wants haloi rotza have a get, it would be a divorce. Ask the Gemara of Amai. The husband cannot appoint the man as a shliach lekabbalah. That's the domain of the woman. The husband can only make a shliach lahalacha. Ela Amrina, we say, despite the fact that he said to him, "Be a shliach lekabbalah." Kivan shenosan ein of legarsha meimer amar tigarish kol hechad megarsha. Hachanami kivan shenosan ein of legarsha meimer amar tigarish kol hechad megarish. Okay, so the Gemara here is really addressing the fundamental point now of Rav Nachman. Now we're sort of pointing out that Rav Nachman does not fit into the traditional dispute between whether or not we trust the messenger to be representing the shliach. Because over here is a situation where the messenger completely botched himself. However, one possibility would be maybe because the husband says take it as a divorce, the husband means I don't care how whether you're shliach halacha or l'kavala or whatever my wife says. It doesn't make a difference to me. All I want is that the divorce should work. And in our Mishnah, we see an example of that. We see a husband appoints a shliach l'kabala, which he has no ability to do, but we presume that what he's actually doing is making a shliach halacha, even if he said kabbalah. Why? Presumably because we feel that if a husband's giving a divorce like this, he wants the divorce to be effectuated in any which way. And therefore, we should argue that it's an argument against Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says the divorce wouldn't be valid if the guy who claimed to be a shliach l'kabala gives a divorce to the woman, even though he wasn't really appointed as a shliach l'kabala. Why don't we say that the husband actually makes him a shliach l'halacha in any which way that he could? So Gemara says hachi hashla. There's no comparison. In our Mishnah, the husband appoints the man as a shliach l'kabala. He knows that he can't make somebody shliach l'kabala because the shliach l'kabala is only something that a woman can make. The gomer v'nasan l'shem halacha. So obviously he meant even though he said the word kabbalah, he obviously meant halacha. But over here, it could be this man was a shliach l'kabala. This man claims to have been appointed by the woman, and therefore hachatoy over here it's a mistake, and therefore maybe it's not a valid divorce. Let's give me a second. Amar Rava. So Rava is going to bring the next proof. Toshma. Let's try to bring another proof. Katana sh'amar heskaba legiti. If you have a katana, a child. Now, we briefly mentioned it in Gittin once. We'll learn about it again in the second paragraph of Kedushin. Atem gam atem. The source. How do we know that you can make the concept of shlichus exist? How do we know that you can appoint a messenger, and that messenger has sort of the power that you had? What does that mean? In other words, so there are certain types of shlichus which aren't significant. So, for example, let's say I appoint you to pay somebody else my debt. Now, when I pay a debt, do I have to give the debt over to the guy to the creditor? All I need to do is ensure the money gets to him. Right? I could drop it off in his mailbox, presumably, or I don't know. I could put it in the street and call him up and let him know it's in the street, and hopefully nobody else takes it. There's no actual act of giving. But over here, the Torah requires the man to give the woman a divorce. The Torah says that a representative of the woman, it's as if it's the woman's hand herself, which clearly requires a pasuk. Now, one of the things we learn out of Atem Gam Atem, Atem specifically is a reference to Truma. If you want, instead of you taking off Truma, you could appoint somebody to take off Truma, even though it doesn't belong to him. What right does he have over your property to decide what's Truma, what's not Truma? So Torah says no. You can appoint a shliach to take off Truma. Now, one of the conditions to appoint a shliach is that the shliach has to be an adult. Child can't make a shliach. So this is the brisa that Rava brings. So what happens? This little girl probably didn't know better. Katana sh'amar heskaba legiti. She appoints a shliach l'kabala and a get that she get liyada. The shliach l'kabala is not a valid shliach until the divorce gets to her hands. Okay, hold on a second. But when the divorce does get to the child's hands, the divorce is valid. Right? The reason why the shliach l'kabala doesn't work here is because it's a child. Hold on a second. The husband thinks the messenger is a shliach l'kabala, not a useless shliach l'kabala, because effectively she can't appoint a shliach l'kabala. So it must be when the husband gave the shliach a divorce, he didn't mean to appoint him a shliach l'kabala. He meant to say, whichever way this divorce will be valid, whether it's a shliach l'kabbalah or it's a shliach l'halacha, I would like it to be valid. And that effectively would be against the argument of Rav Nachman. Because Rav Nachman says when the shliach misrepresented as a shliach l'kabbalah, and the husband says, do what my wife says, which he thought was a shliach l'kabbalah, but in actuality was no shlichus at all, because the wife can't appoint a shliach l'halacha, we should say the same concept. What the husband actually meant to do was, I don't care what type of shliach you are, just give it the divorce. And this is a question of Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman saying the divorce is not valid. Why don't we say this argument? The husband didn't actually care whether it was a shliach l'kabbalah or shliach l'halacha. He just wants a divorce. And therefore, the divorce should be valid whether or not she's a shliach l'halacha or shliach l'kabbalah. So the Gemara says, Hachanami, we should say in the scenario of Nachman, once he has intention of divorcing her, he doesn't care to appoint a specific type of shlichus. All he wants is that the divorce should be effectuated. Gemara says again, same problem. There's no comparison. Everybody knows that a kotan can't appoint a shliach, and therefore so therefore, no, he didn't say that I'm divorcing you any which way. He said become a shliach l'halacha because he knows the shliach l'kabbalah is not valid because a child can't appoint a shliach l'kabbalah. However, Hachatoi over here he made a mistake. Okay, now we get into it. Toshma, Havali Giti. Bring me the woman says, bring me my divorce. Exactly the same scenario as Rav Nachman. And he claims to the husband, his Gittin. Your wife said I should be a shliach l'kabbalah. Alternatively, the opposite happens. His Gittin, his wife said shliach l'kabbalah. V'ishtcha amra, and the shliach misrepresented, and he says amra havali Gittin. Bring me divorce. And he says to the shliach one of the following statements: Haylach v'tein la be a shliach l'halacha, and give it to her, or zechila v'hiskabala. Zechila v'hiskabala are the same thing. Be a shliach l'kabbalah, accept it on her behalf. The halacha is rotza lachzar yachzar. If he wants to change his mind, he can change his mind. Mishi giyah liyada migureshes. But once the divorce gets to her, then she is divorced.
Wait a second.
Okay. So the Gemara says, my love must be kabbalah, v'halacha, halacha. Okay. Presumably, the first version of the Gemara is as follows. So the woman appoints him a shliach l'kabbalah. He misrepresents as a shliach l'halacha. What does the husband say? Hiskabel, be a shliach l'kabbalah. And yet, what do we say? No, you're not a shliach l'kabbalah, you're actually a shliach l'halacha. Second scenario, the woman says, collect my divorce. The husband misrepresents and says, I want to be a shliach l'kabbalah. Yeah? One second. Hold on one second. Hold on. Yes. Okay, I'm accurate. Okay, again, the woman says haylach, which is sort of it's not even a shlichus, right? A woman can't appoint a shliach l'halacha. So the woman says haylach. The woman says haylach, bring it to me. Basically, go to the city and convince him to give me a divorce. And the husband goes and misrepresents. He says it's skabel, and then the husband says haylach, carry it for her. And we say the divorce is valid. Okay, one second. Sorry. It's the opposite. Okay, sorry. The Gemara here is saying that basically the husband said to the shliach exactly what he said to him. So in other words, in the scenario, the first scenario, the woman says his skabel be a shliach l'kabbalah. He says, I'd like to be a shliach l'halacha. The husband says, okay, you're a shliach l'halacha. The second scenario is the woman says, collect it for me, which is not even a shliach l'halacha. The husband misrepresents and says his skabel. And the husband says, oh, hiskabel. Go be a shliach l'kabbalah. You claim to be a shliach l'kabbalah here, be a shliach l'kabbalah. And what does the Brisa say? Even though this is a blatant misrepresentation of the shlichus, he still becomes a shliach l'halacha. Why? Because evidently when the husband says hiskabel or hailach, he doesn't mean hiskabel. He doesn't mean specifically shliach l'kabbalah or shliach l'halacha. He means be divorced in any which manner. I don't care. And this is a question on Rav Nachman. Right? The shliach misrepresents the woman. The woman says collect it. The shliach says shliach l'kabbalah. The husband says go be a shliach l'kabbalah. The halacha is divorce. It's valid. Only when it gets to her, because she never actually appointed you as a shliach l'kabbalah. Why is that? Must be because the husband doesn't care to make a shliach l'kabbalah. All he means is to divorce her. This is a question of Rav Nachman. 1 second. Gemara says no. Kabbalah halacha, v'halacha kabbalah. The scenario is where the husband actually matched what the woman said. So the woman says kabbalah, the shliach says halacha, husband says kabbalah. Or the woman says halacha, the shliach misrepresents and says kabbalah, and the husband says halacha. The Gemara says ikabbalah halacha mechimati gita liyad la'alta lehavigita. Okay, so hold on a second. The woman says kabbalah. The shliach misrepresents and says halacha. I'm here to collect it. The husband says, I'm giving it to you as a shliach l'kabbalah. And what do we say? We say he's actually appointed as a shliach l'halacha. Obviously, what do we see from here? That actually he's relying on what the woman said and not relying on the messenger, which is also a question of Rav Nachman. Because over here, the messenger misrepresented as a shliach l'halacha. The husband said, I'd like a shliach kabbalah, which is exactly what his wife said. And yet we still treat the messenger as a shliach l'halacha. Shma mina, we're relying on what he said. And that's why we treat him as a shliach l'halacha. Gemara says, that's not either a proof. There's no proof at all. Why is there no proof? Because fundamentally, the whole case is implausible here. It makes sense to have a question whether we're relying on him or her, where the husband says, "I'd like to rely on my wife." Now the question is, do you mean what your wife actually said, or do you mean what your wife was represented as saying? But over here, he didn't know what his wife said. He didn't hear what his wife said. He said, "I'd like you to be a shliach l'kabbalah," and the shliach only represented as a shliach l'halacha. And in that case, he's not doing what his wife says. He has no clue what his wife says. He clearly meant to make a shliach l'halacha. He didn't care what his wife said. And therefore, there's no comparison. Okay, and this Gemara remains unresolved, I believe. Yeah. Okay, now we shift gears a little bit here. Hiskabel giti. The woman says, "Be a shliach l'kabbalah." The husband represents as ve'ishtecha amra. Your wife said, "Hiskabel giti." Accurately, he represented as a shliach l'kabbalah. And he says, "Hailach v'tenla." He says one of the following words: "Hailach la," bring it to her; "Tenla," give it to her; "Zechila," acquire it on her behalf; "Ve'hiskabel." Be mekabel it for her, also receive it. If he wants to change his mind, he can no longer change his mind. In other words, presumably here, because the shliach represented accurately as a shliach l'kabbalah, and he gave the get to a shliach l'kabbalah, he meant to execute it immediately, like every shliach l'kabbalah. Reb Nosson says there's one exception. If he says hailech v'tenla, carry it for her and give it to her, then he is allowed to change his mind. Remember, this is going to have to do with the debate of hailech k'schidami. Is telling somebody to carry it, telling them to acquire it on behalf of the one who they're carrying it for. Okay. That is Reb Nosson's opinion. Zechila v'hiskabala, but if he says acquire it or be mekabala for her, receive it for her, then Reb Nosson agrees you can't change your mind. Rabbi says, in all the scenarios, if he wants to change his mind, he can't change his mind. Why? Because the get has been effectuated. However, if he says, I don't want you to serve as a shliach l'kabbalah, I only want you to serve as a shliach l'halacha, so then he's allowed to change his mind. So the Gemara says, Rebbe Hainu Tanakama. Rebbe is the same opinion as the Tanakama, the first opinion. So the Gemara says, one possibility is, and Rebbe is coming to tell me that if you'd like to make the man into Shliach L'Halacha, you have to specifically say, no Shliach L'Kabbalah, instead I'd rather you be a Shliach L'Halacha. Using the word like Hailach does not change the fact that he's a Shliach L'Kabbalah. Another possibility, the Bryce is explaining, Man Tanakama, who's the first author, that's unnamed authorship, it's actually Rebbe. It's Rabbi Yehudah. Okay, then borrow your arts for a second. Okay, third line from the bottom of the page, middle of the line, Ibalahu. Question. So we know that according to Rav Nosson, if you say Hailach, which means carry the divorce, that means a Shliach L'Halacha. What happens if you said Hailach? As we noted yesterday, Hailach and Hailach are different. Hailach means take the divorce. Does that mean take the divorce as an acquire it, or does it mean carry the divorce as in Hailach, and therefore be a Shliach L'Halacha? Hailach Rav Nosson, Kischidami, or Lav Kischidami? Does that mean to Hailach take the divorce and acquire it, or does it mean take it and carry it like Hailach? Toshma. Let's examine. Let's try to bring a proof for this. Somebody says, accept this divorce on my wife's behalf, or he says Hailach Getzel Ishti. Rotzalach so Yachzar. He wants to change his mind. He can change his mind. He ishish Omer Skabali Gittin. Rotzalach lo Yachzar. So if he tells a messenger his skabel or hailach, he could change his mind because that's a shliach l'halacha. But if his wife said his skabel, his wife appointed a shliach l'kabbalah, then ratzalach lo yachzar. In this scenario, he can't change his mind. My love must be this brisa is it's not talking about hailach, it's actually talking about hailach. And yet, even in a scenario, once the woman appointed the shliach as a shliach l'kabbalah, and the husband says hailach, he can't change his mind. Rav Nosson, it's the opinion of Rav Nosson, and Hailach is Kischidami. It's like saying Hiskabel. You tell a Shliach L'Kabbalah accept it, it's the same thing as if you tell him Hailach, which is to say Hailach is Kischi. Take the divorce means acquire it. Gemara says, no, loy, not necessarily, but Hailach the Rebbe. We're talking about where he says Hailach, and we're going with the opinion of Rebbe. And Rebbe says that if you tell a Shliach L'Kabbalah Hailach, you're telling him, acquire it, and the divorce is executed. Similarly, Tashma, another proof. If the husband says, I don't want you to acquire it, I want you to be a shliach l'halacha. He's allowed to change his mind. Taima de Amar specifically is because he says he says I'm rejecting your authorization as a shliach l'kabbalah. I don't want you to serve as a shliach l'kabbalah. Instead, I want you to serve as a shliach l'halacha. If he didn't say if he didn't say specifically, I don't want you to serve as a shliach l'kabbalah, then he wouldn't be able to change his mind. My love, what are we talking about? He didn't say hailach, carry the divorce. He said hailach, take this document. Rav Nosson, it's the opinion of Rav Nosson that says that hailach, take this divorce document, is kischi. It's as if saying, as a shliach kabbalah, I'd like you to acquire it, and my wife should be divorced. So Gemara says, no, loy b'hailach for Rebbe. We're talking about where he says hailach, and the opinion of Rebbe is that hailach is also kischi dami. If you say hailach, it doesn't mean shliach l'hailach. If you are talking to a shliach l'kabbalah and you say hailach, carry the divorce, what you're saying is, I'd like you to serve as a shliach l'kabbalah and acquire the divorce. Tashma, next proof. Hailach getzel ishti. Carry this divorce from my wife. If he wants to change his mind, he could. Hailach getzel ishti. Take this divorce and give it to my wife. If he wants to change his mind, he can't. Man shamet le da'amar b'hailach rotzalach yachzar. Rav Nosson. Who's the one that says that when you give a divorce to a shliach l'kabbalah and you say hailach, carry it, you could change your mind, because saying hailach to a shliach l'kabbalah is saying don't be a shliach l'kabbalah, be a shliach l'hailacha. Who's that opinion? It's Rav Nosson. V'ka'amar behelech rotz lachzor lo yachzor shma mino helech k'schida mishma mino. But what do we see from here? That helech is the same thing as saying iskabel, receive on her behalf. Take this divorce is saying take it on her behalf and execute it. I mean, that is to say the divorce is immediately valid and he can't change his mind.
That's only if she sent him as a.
As a shliach l'kabbalah. Yeah. Okay, we together?
Yeah, so he's basically confirming her.
Correct. Helech is a confirmation of her appointment, of his appointment as a shliach, his or her appointment as a shliach l'kabbalah. Okay.
But it can't stand alone from the husband's side. It doesn't stand alone as a shliach kabbalah.
Correct. Like we said before, the husband has no capacity to appoint a shliach kabbalah, and the woman has no capacity to appoint a shliach halacha. Now, each one of them can make a suggestion to the other, but that's not even a shlichus. That's sort of asking a favor to carry a message. It's no different than sending a text message with a person, basically a letter. In the old days. Okay. 26. Let's see the first line of Gemara here. I'll start it for tomorrow. Itmar, Eskabel Gittin. The woman says, "I'm appointing you shliach l'kabbalah," and the shliach says, represents as v'ishtecha amar Eskabel Gittin. Your wife said I should be a shliach l'kabbalah. In other words, he represents accurately. V'hu aimer, and the husband says, "Haylach v'ten lo," go ahead and give it to her. Amar Abba Amar Rafuna. So Abba says the name of Rafuna. Nasa shluchay ushlucha v'chaletzes. At that point, he becomes the messenger of both him and her, and therefore, we don't know if she's divorced or not. And if the husband dies at the next minute without children, she must perform chalitza. Why? Because we're concerned maybe halach is kischi, maybe halach is not kischi. He doesn't know. He's not sure what the halacha is. When he says he talks to a shliach l'kabbalah and he says halach, we don't know what the halacha is. If halach kischi dami, the divorce is effectuated immediately. He can't change his mind. If halach is laf kischi dami, then the divorce is not valid until he brings her the divorce. Because we don't know, we treat her as a suffix if she's divorced or not. Therefore, if her husband dies without children, she must do chalitza and can't do yibum because maybe she can't do yibum because maybe she was divorced, but she requires chalitza because maybe she wasn't divorced. Okay, we'll stop here. Okay, have a great day. I'm glad we got up here. I wasn't even sure we'd get up this far.